right, so it's been over a month since the last time we saw Indigo Champion Ash. A lot of you guys have been leaving comments on the other video of when this is going to come, so I think you've waited long enough. Let's get into part 4. Today, we pick up with Team Ash and the revelation of Brock and the 3 eggs. Misty asks what the purpose of the eggs are. Brock tells her they're from Professor Elm. They were given to him by Officer Jenny. She arrested a Pokemon poacher, and in his care were many Pokemon eggs. So when I got to meet Professor Elm, he was trying to decide on what to do with them. When I told him I wanted to be a Pokemon breeder, he asked if I wouldn't mind working with them, as he didn't know what to do with them, or have the time to, due to being a professor and having to travel for his research quite often. Then, I mentioned you two, and he asked if I would take the other 2 eggs for you guys. Ash butts in super excited. A chance to raise a Pokemon from an egg, he wonders what's inside, and imagines what it could be. Maybe a Pokemon that no one has ever seen before. Brock tells Ash and Misty that these Pokemon have been through a lot. We don't know the type of experiences they had before we got them, so we need to be extra careful. Ash and Misty both acknowledge it and gladly take on the role. Ash then heads in the Pokemon Center and returns Pidgeot to Professor Oak. That night, the trio are discussing their next move. The gyms for Johto are scattered throughout the rural region. Brock says there are 2 gyms to the east of Violet City, but there are 4 gyms to the west. Ash then asks where the championship is being held. Misty says, "I think it's here," pointing to Mount Silver on a map. If I recall, it's called the Silver Conference. Ash says, "Then it seems to me we should hit the gyms in the west, as we should save the last 2 gyms that are closest to Mount Silver for last." Brock says, "That makes the most sense to me." With that, the next morning, the trio head out for Equitique City. This takes about a week. During this time, Ash has been meticulous with his egg. He refuses to let it out of its sight. He sleeps with it, eats with it, holds it while he's training with his other Pokemon, and polishes it almost every hour on the dot. The care he's showing for it even has Brock impressed. Ash tells him that this is the first egg he has ever hatched, so he wants to make sure he does it right. The intentiveness that Ash is showing towards the egg actually rubs off on Misty, as she too repeats the same process. After about a week, they finally make it to their destination in Equitique City. Ash wants to head straight to the gym, but is stopped by Misty. She wants to check out a place that is said to put on Pokemon shows, much like the Cerulean Gym, the Equitique Dance Hall. Ash doesn't want to, but he's outvoted by Misty, Brock, and Pikachu. So, they head to a place that's known for its shows with a particular Pokemon and its evolutions, the Kimono Girls. As soon as they enter, Brock goes for his normal obsession over all the pretty girls, meeting rejection at every turn. But during the show, the Kimono Girls have an opportunity they offer their audience. A battle with the sisters, any one of their choice. But tonight is special because they have a celebrity in the house, as they put the spotlight on Ash, the champion of the Kanto region. Of course, Ash isn't one to turn down a challenge, and he accepts, walking up on stage, while Brock tells him to go easy, trying to gain favor with at least one of the sisters. Misty just grabs Brock's ear, telling him that he will never be the star of their show. Once Ash is on stage, he's greeted by the 5 sisters. Naoko asks Ash to choose which sister he would like to battle. Failing to spot a deja vu from his battle at the Cerulean Gym, Ash says he would like to battle all 5 of them. This shocks the sisters and the crowd. No one has ever wanted to challenge all 5 sisters, but he is the Kanto champion, so they should expect nothing less. This type of fire piques the interest of Miki. She steps forward, declaring she would be the first opponent. Ash is excited as Miki sends out her Flareon. Ash is familiar with this Pokemon, since he had the experience with the 3 Eevee brothers. Ash, starting off strong, sends in Wartortle. The battle gets underway and is one-sided from the start. Wartortle's type advantage and its battle experience shows here, when its Hydro Pump pushes through a flamethrower to take no damage. This makes the other sisters pay attention. They didn't think Miki would lose this easily. The next sister is up, Kunai, and she sends in her Vaporeon. Ash recalls Wartortle as the battles are one-on-one, and decides to keep the water theme going when he sends in Octillery. Octillery still isn't listening to Ash, even though he's been working with it. Octillery refuses to acknowledge Ash and his abilities, and this has been very frustrating to Ash, making him a little short-tempered with it. This battle is no exception. Octillery refuses to listen to Ash, just attacking Vaporeon with moves Ash didn't command. But the confusion of Ash and Octillery works somewhat in the advantage for them, as Kunai is having trouble responding. But ultimately, Ash recalls it again, forfeiting the battle out of embarrassment. Next up is Izuki. She states that last match was kinda painful to watch, not something she'd expect from a champion. Ash, now more embarrassed, says he knows that out of frustration, then tells Zuki to send in her Pokemon. Zuki can see this frustration and is happy to do so with her Umbreon. Ash, wanting to get a lead, chooses to send in Pikachu, his best. The battle gets pretty intense, as Umbreon has Moonlight, so whenever Pikachu lands a hit, Umbreon manages to heal. The battle becomes a war of endurance when Ash calls for a thunder that envelops the stage with a glow and captures everyone's attention. Once the light fades, fades, both Pokemon have fallen in defeat, making the battle a draw. Ash walks out to get Pikachu and thanks it for the hard-fought battle. Next up is Seiyo. She was impressed with Ash's Pikachu. She really wished she could have been the one to battle it, but oh well. Seiyo then sends in her Pokemon, Jolteon. Ash says, okay, I can see why you wanted to battle Pikachu, to test Jolteon's voltage. But he has the perfect counter to this, as he sends in Gligar. The battle starts, and Seiyo does what she can against Gligar, but her Pokemon just doesn't have the coverage to hit a Pokemon with dual typing. The only thing she is really able to do is Sand Attack, which only really slows down her loss. Eventually, Jolteon gets caught in a guillotine, taking it out. The final sister, and arguably the strongest sister, Naoko, steps forward. She tells Ash that he plays his types pretty well. He is everything she expected of a champion. So far, he's proven to have great battle instincts, and aside from Octillery, he has bonded with his Pokemon well. Ash thanks her for the compliment, and tells her he hopes that she's ready. Ash sends in his final Pokemon, Bayleaf. Naoko responds by sending in her ace, Espeon. Once Ash uses his Pokédex to learn that it's a psychic type, he realizes it'll be difficult, having flashbacks to his battle with Sabrina. The battle starts, and it's clear that Bayleaf is outmatched in every attribute. Its physical attacks are being stopped by confusion, and Espeon is just faster than it. Bayleaf and Ash are having trouble keeping up. Then to show just how outmatched Ash and Bayleaf are, Naoko orders a move that Ash has never seen before, Return. This move hits Bayleaf with enough force to end the battle instantly. Ash rushes to Bayleaf, asking if it's okay. He then questions what kind of move that was. Naoko tells him that it's Return, a move that grows in power as the bond with trainer and Pokemon strengthen. Ash, realizing that for it to have that much power means that they must be really trusting of each other. Naoko says yes, Espeon was her first Pokemon, so it's only right that Return would be that powerful. Ash gets excited. He asks Bayleaf if he would want to learn a move like that, and it nods in approval. Ash then asks Naoko if she wouldn't mind teaching him and Bayleaf that move after he has a gym battle tomorrow. Naoko says, oh, so that's why you're here. I'm sorry, Ash, but the leader Morty actually isn't in town right now. He's going to be gone for a while. Ash is bummed. He really wanted a chance to earn another badge, but at least he can still get some training in from Naoko. So Ash spends the next week training under her with Bailey. Meanwhile, Brock actually takes the time to learn about each of the evolutions as he hopes to be a breeder, and having all of their known evolutions in one place is a great learning experience. Then there's Misty. She has been very reserved as of late. She is still training, working with Gyarados and Poliwhirl as they are her best Pokemon, but the question she keeps asking herself is, why? But before she can answer it, Ash and Brock are done with their training, and they are back on the road once more, heading to Olivine City, the site of the next gym. On the way there, Team Ash comes across an old man named Kenzo, who is in danger of being trampled by a rampaging Tauros. The man watches very carefully after Ash intervenes using War Turtle to stop the Tauros, very gracefully and full of power, with moves like Rapid Spin and Hydro Pump. Kenzo then asks Team Ash to accompany him to his fighting dojo, where he proclaims that Ash will be taking over for him as the master. But Kenzo's granddaughter, Chikusa, refuses to let Ash be the one to take the dojo. She then challenges him to a battle of fighting types, but Ash doesn't have one. Kenzo, however, says that Ash has War Turtle. It has all the characteristics of a fighting type to battle, but they are then interrupted by Shiro, the dojo destroyer. He seeks to beat the master of the dojo and take its plaque. After Kenzo is unable to defend the gym and Chikusa steps in, she nearly loses the battle, but is interrupted when Team Rocket attacks. After Team Rocket blasts off again, Shiro announces that he will be back at dawn for a rematch to take the dojo's plaque. Chikusa, finally aware that she is outmatched, starts to worry that she isn't cut out to succeed her grandfather and she will lose the plaque. Kenzo then steps in and asks Ash and War Turtle to train with Chikusa. Chikusa thinks this is a stupid idea until they get on the battlefield and she realizes that War Turtle's movements is very similar to her Hitmontop's, but it's more refined, and their teamwork is much more in sync than hers and Hitmontop's. Once Chikusa realizes her grandfather was right, she pleads with Ash to work with her and Hitmontop to train with them for the battle with Shiro. Ash agrees and they train deep into the night. Ash can see that War Turtle is really enjoying this activity. The next morning comes and Chikusa ends up winning the battle against Shiro, but just barely. Ash can see that Chikusa still needs more training if she ever wants to be the master of the dojo. So, before Team Ash leaves, Ash makes a very difficult decision. He decides to leave War Turtle at the dojo to train. Not forever, but just for the time being. As Team Ash continues on the road to Olivine City, major events start to happen. First of all, the stimulation from the battles with all the Kimono Girls and the training with Chikusa has Ash's egg hatch shortly after leaving the dojo. The egg erupts in light, and after weeks of waiting, Ash's egg is revealed to be a new Pokemon that the group has never seen. Ash pulls out his Pokédex, and it's revealed to be a Magby. The little mon belches fire as it stretches, and the first thing it sees is Ash. Much like Togepi, Magby immediately imprints on Ash, and it sees him as its parent. Ash tries to capture it in a Pokeball, but it refuses out of fear of being cooped up, and after Magby runs off and Ash has to track it down, Ash decides to leave it out of the ball for the time being. This does create some conflict with Bayleaf though. Now, Ash finds himself in the middle of a Pokemon love triangle between Bayleaf, Magby, and Pikachu. The next major event is when Team Ash gets lost in a forest and end up spending the night in an abandoned cabin, when they wake up to a Teddiursa sleeping with Misty. They think it's cute and innocent until all their supplies start to go missing, and Ash battles it with Bayleaf. It turns out that Teddiursa steals food because it doesn't know how to hunt for itself. After Bayleaf battles it and knocks it out, Brock gets his bag back, but then Teddiursa evolves as a response to the battle. Ash, knowing full well Ursaring are very aggressive, tells Bayleaf to hit it with a return, then to bind it with the Vine Whip. Ash then throws a Pokeball, catching it. Ash thinks that was way easier than he thought it would be, but Ash now has his 6th Johto member. After getting their Pokemon checked out by Nurse Joy, Ash realizes why Ursaring was so easy to catch. It's asleep. Then when Brock mentions food, it immediately wakes up, wondering where it's at. Ash thinks, great, I just caught another Snorlax. Luckily, it doesn't eat as much. With that, Team Ash move on and make their way to Olivine City. Ash spends his time working with Magby and Octillery. Magby is really into doing what Ash does, but Octillery, it still isn't listening. As a matter of fact, it's grown even more aggressive, attacking Ash's other Pokemon, forcing Ash to only let it out of its ball when it's the only Pokemon around. This has really started getting to Ash, as he's even stopped using it in battles, as it's too aggressive towards other Pokemon. Ash is taken to using Bayleaf, Magby, Gligar, and Pikachu, and from time to time Ursaring, as it does have a lazy streak. Magby eventually comes around to being in the Pokeball, after some reassurance from Ash that it won't be in there forever. Team Ash finally makes it to Olivine City, and Ash heads straight for the gym. This gym is one that Brock is all too familiar with, as Jasmine, the leader, and him have the same ace Pokemon. After Brock gets shot down by Jasmine and he realizes Goo Goo Eyes won't work, Ash makes his challenge. Jasmine is a little starstruck as Ash, the Indigo champion, is challenging her gym. She gets excited at the prospect of battling a champion. Jasmine tells him that she would like to have a battle with him in a 3-on-3 format. Ash agrees to this, and the trainers take their positions. Jasmine starts the battle with her Magnemite. Ash chooses to go with his newest Pokemon and sends in Magby. Ash has really been working with it, and he's been itching to use it in a gym battle. Jasmine tells Ash it was smart to use a fire type against the steel type, but type advantage alone won't win on the battle. Ash tells her don't worry, she won't be disappointed, as he calls for an Ember. Jasmine skillfully orders Magnemite to dodge and then to use a Thunder Wave that connects. Ash isn't getting off to a good start, and he calls to Magby to use another Ember, but the paralysis has it and Magby gets caught in a Thunderbolt. The battle has been one-sided and it just barely started. Jasmine tells Ash that she was expecting better from the Indigo champ. It seems he was more hype than anything. This does get to Ash a little bit, but he shakes it off because he knows that if he doesn't do something, Magby will lose. Ash then orders Magby to use Ember repeatedly, forcing Magnemite to dodge. Jasmine just sees this as another failed attempt, so she orders Magnemite to use another Thunderbolt, and Ash calls for a double team. This confuses Magnemite, and Ash capitalizes with a Fire Spin that envelops Magnemite. This unfortunately is not enough to clinch it, and Magnemite hits Magby with another Thunderbolt, knocking it out. Ash recalls Magby, thanking it for the effort that it put in. Jasmine tells Ash he's going to have to do way better, as she was hoping for much more of a challenge. Ash says, don't worry, I got one for you, and he sends in Pikachu. The next battle goes fairly quick, as Pikachu proves to be too much for the battle-worn Magnemite, and Pikachu takes it out with a Thunderbolt of its own. Jasmine then recalls Magnemite, and she makes a choice that she doesn't want to hold back, so she sends in the Pokemon that Ash thought she would save for last, Steelix. Ash then asks Pikachu if it can still battle. It nods, so the battle starts, and it quickly becomes one-sided. Pikachu is just dodging around, avoiding Iron Tail after Iron Tail. Ash eventually recalls Pikachu for later. Ash now has a choice to make. The next Pokemon is his final choice for this battle. He could go with Bayleaf, but Steel types resist Grass types. He could go with Gligar, but it doesn't have the power to match Steelix's defense. And Octillery, well, let's just say Ash doesn't even want to think about that option right now. So that leaves only one choice, and he sends in Ursaring. As the bear Pokemon emerges from the ball, it is visibly dazed, like it just woke up. Then it sees Steelix and looks back at Ash to kind of give it a really look. Ash tells it he needs his power right now, so to be on guard. Steelix is a tough opponent. Ursaring yawns and stretches as it attempts to prepare itself for the battle. Jasmine, not wanting to wait any longer, orders Steelix to use an Iron Tail, thinking that this would be an easy win, as this particular Ursaring seems to be different than the rest of its species, as it appears more docile than normal. But as the Iron Tail appears to connect, it is stopped mid-attack, catching Jasmine and Steelix off guard. Ash just smiles. You see, in the time that he caught Ursaring, Ash has used it in practice battles against Misty and Brock, and in particular against Brock's Steelix, as it was the toughest thing that Brock had. Although that it seems that Ursaring is lazy and has no ambition mission, it's actually the opposite. Ash finds out that it takes a few to get going, but the docile bear is actually an extremely brutal battler. Ursaring uses one hand to hold back the Iron Tail. Ash orders it to use the other hand to execute a dynamic punch, which connects with Steelix's tail with enough force to spin the giant metallic snake around, sending it into a confusion, causing massive damage. Ash tells Jasmine she got a little bit too impatient. If she would have just waited, then she could have potentially won. It's at this point that she realizes that Steelix is confused as it thrashes about. Ursaring at this point just has to land the finishing blow. With Ash being its second set of eyes, Ursaring is able to get in close when it tanks another Iron Tail direct attack to crack Steelix directly in the jaw with one final dynamic punch, ending the battle. Jasmine recalls Steelix, thanking it for the battle. She tells Ash that it was smart to use Ursaring's slow start to throw her off, but now she intends to take control of this battle with speed as she sends in her final Pokemon, Skarmory. Ash, remembering this Pokemon from his battle with Faulkner, chooses to recall Ursaring and sends back in Pikachu. The battle erupts with speed as Skarmory uses its high defense to tank Pikachu's quick attacks, retaliating with Steel Wings that knock the electric mouse to the ground. Pikachu may have the type advantage, but it is having trouble hitting Skarmory as it is in flight. In the end, Skarmory is able to outlast Pikachu when it rushes in with a Steel Wing, knocking out the mouse Pokemon. Ash walks out to Pikachu to retrieve it, and then sends back in Ursaring. Though the normal type now stands tall, it's feeling the battle with Steelix. But Skarmory is also not at 100%, as the battle with Pikachu, though heavily in its favor, caused some damage. The final battle of these two gets underway, and Ash chooses to play more cautiously as he orders repeat double teams, increasing Ursaring's evasiveness. This allows Ursaring to stay one step ahead of Skarmory in the battle. Then when Skarmory comes in with a Steel Wing, Ash orders a slash that Ursaring uses to grab the wings of Skarmory. Ash then orders Ursaring to use its final move, Seismic Toss. Ursaring sends Skarmory into the ground, ending the battle. Just in time too, as Ursaring decides that it wants to take a nap. Ash just laughs nervously and recalls it. Jasmine recalls Skarmory and presents Ash with the mineral badge. She tells him that she can see why he is a champion. She can't wait to see how well he does in the Johto League. Ash thanks Jasmine and the trio prepare to take their leave. But as they head out the door, the keeper of the Olivine Lighthouse rushes in to tell Jasmine that there's a problem at the lighthouse. Jasmine rushes off with Team Ash in tow. When they arrive, they find a very concerning sight. The Pokemon, Ampharos, that provides light for the lighthouse, has fallen ill. Unfortunately, Olivine's Nurse Joy is away from the city at the moment, but Brock then steps in to diagnose the Ampharos. After some time, Brock tells everyone it's not good. Ampharos has developed a virus that seems to be immune to any of his treatments. Not even a full restore has a positive effect. Jasmine, worried, asks what options they have. Brock says they need some raw ingredients. The regular commercially produced medicine won't work. They need stronger doses. Jasmine says, well, there's a pharmacy in Cianwood City that sells what Brock needs. Without missing a beat, Brock declares that he will get these ingredients. Ash secretly doesn't want to go through all this trouble, and Misty is again wondering when she will find her place in the team, as it seems both Ash and Brock know their roles and destinations, while she's just blindingly following them. Jasmine says Brock doesn't have to do that, she will go, but Brock insists. Then he asks where Cianwood City is. Jasmine says it's a 2-day boat ride from Olivine, as she points out over the sea. She also mentions that there is another one of the Johto gyms there, which catches Ash's attention, getting him on board with the idea of going. Ash then says, alright, we'll go get the items needed. As Brock prepares a list of what he needs, Misty looks out over the ocean, wondering if the answers she seeks lay in its depths. Now we switch over to Team Gary. Gary is well into his battle with Whitney. He has already managed to take down her Furret and her Teddiursa using Umbreon and Elekid, but Elekid falls to Miltank after taking multiple rollouts that were powered up by a defense curl. Gary chooses to send in his final Pokemon, something that won't fall to Miltank's attract, Nidoqueen. This proves to be the right move as Nidoqueen has the power needed to counter Miltank. Whitney comments that Gary is a very well-rounded trainer. He's had a Pokemon for all of the situations that she's thrown at him. Gary tells her she's actually a lot stronger than he thought. Watching her battle with Ethan, she was actually holding back. Ethan hears this comment and it gets to him. He starts to doubt the badge that Whitney gave him, questioning if he really earned it. As Ethan is lost in his thoughts, he is snapped back to reality when the match is called, declaring Gary the victor. Gary then collects his badge from Whitney and they head back to the Pokemon Center. Later on, Ethan asks what Gary meant when he said that Whitney was stronger than she was letting on. Gary asks Ethan what he means by that. Ethan explains that if Whitney was stronger than she let on when she was battling with him, then he really didn't earn her gym badge because he didn't really beat her. Gary tells Ethan not to get too hung up on it. When he said that, he was referring to the way she battled. With you, it was just a casual battle that she enjoyed so much that she wanted to reward you with a badge. And because she didn't know you, her mental approach was different. But mine, on the other hand, she was very well aware of who I am, being the grandson of Professor Oak. People usually know me, so her approach with me was much more tactful and reserved. Don't worry, as you develop your own reputation, you'll find people will treat you with more caution as your abilities grow. Ethan hears what Gary is saying, but part of him is still bothered by this. The next morning, Team Gary head to the Goldenrod radio tower to meet a very special person, his grandfather. Once they meet Professor Oak, he tells them that his time is limited as he has a radio show to record, but he's happy to see Gary again. Marina, though, takes up most of the time of Professor Oak, as she wants to talk about Pokemon and how Professor Oak didn't want her as a research assistant. Before they knew it, the professor had to go, and he was off. Unfortunately, Ethan didn't get any real time to talk with Professor Oak due to Marina's persistence, so the group move on to the next gym in Equitique City. During the trip, the group comes across an event known as the Bug Catching Contest. The trio decide to enter to get some new Pokemon. Ethan does the worst. It seems that every time he tries to catch a bug type, Beedrill or one of its evolutions get in his way. Since he already has a Beedrill, this prompts a never-ending game of catch and release, causing him to come in dead last due to not having any bug types at all. Marina ends up in second place after her and Totodile end up catching a Spinarak that seems to be a higher level than most of the other bug types, and as a prize, she gets a Sunstone. Gary takes first when he and Elekid come across a Scyther, and it proves to be a prodigious battler. It's a struggle to catch it, but Gary manages to do so, and in the process, getting first prize. Gary is also awarded with an item that he's not too familiar with, Metal Coat. The president of the Bug Catching Association tells Gary that he's very lucky. The Metal Coat is used to evolve Pokemon like the one he just caught, Scyther. Gary thinks back to the battle at the Azalea Gym with Bugsy and his Scizor. It was tough. It could stand up to his Arcanine. Gary decides to send Skarmory to his grandfather and evolves Scyther into Scizor, adding it to his team. The group then moves on, with Ethan frustrated that he didn't even catch any new Pokemon, but it is short-lived. Upon traveling to Equitique City, the group comes across a man trying to catch a Noctowl that has an odd coloring. The man introduces himself as a Dr. Wiseman, and he tells the group that he's been trying to catch Noctowl for years, but it seems to have an above-average intelligence, and it keeps outsmarting him. After another failed attempt, Noctowl challenges Ethan to a battle, in which he uses Quagsire. The battle rides on a razor's edge. Quagsire's ability to be fluid with the attacks Noctowl executes and retaliate with point-blank water guns and headbutts proves useful, resulting in Ethan capturing Noctowl and completing his team of 6. With that capture, the team finally moves on to Equitique City and the site of the next gym. The town is eerily quiet, veiled in a deep fog. The trio make their way to the gym, and upon arrival, Ethan declares he wants to go first. He also tells Gary that he doesn't want any help from him. Gary is surprised, but does not argue. Gary knew that this time would eventually come, and he knew that Ethan would want to prove his capability as a trainer. But to Ethan, it's much more than that. He needs this win after the questionable win over Whitney. But once they head inside, the group is informed that the gym leader Morty is actually checking out a landmark north of the city called the Burn Tower. So he will have to wait until he returns to get his gym battle. Ethan, anxious to get his next badge, refuses to wait and takes off to the Burn Tower, aiming to drag the gym leader back if he has to. As Ethan disappears, Marina gives chase, but Gary decides to stay behind. He thinks that whatever happens could be a good experience for the two, so he heads to the Pokemon Center. Marina and Ethan eventually arrive at the tower. What they find is a depressing scene. The tower is barely standing, and in Ethan's opinion, should have been torn down a long time ago, as it looks like a safety hazard. But he needs to find the gym leader, so he heads inside with Marina in tow. The two fumble around in the dimly lit ruins, and it becomes apparent that there's a lot of ghost types in the tower. They have made it their home, but it seems that all the Pokemon are uneasy about something. They're all on edge. Trying to illuminate the area, Ethan sends out Quilava to use its fire for light. This makes things a little easier, and instantly, Marina spots a Pokemon that's quivering in fear. Ethan uses a Pokedex, and it tells him that it's known as Mr. Vis. Marina attempts to approach it, but the little ghost Pokemon weeps in fear. Then, in the shadows, they hear a sound. A mysterious Pokemon appears, and Ethan uses his Pokedex to find out that this Pokemon is Gengar. Ethan thinks that Gengar is the reason that all the Pokemon are uneasy, so he orders Quilava to attack. Then, someone orders Gengar to fade to avoid the attack. This stops Ethan in his tracks. Morty then emerges from the darkness. This isn't a place for a battle. It's too dangerous. Ethan asks who he is, and Morty introduces himself as the gym leader of the Equitique Gym. Ethan, realizing that he's the one he's here for, asks Morty for a gym battle. Morty declines, as at the moment, he's here to find out why the Pokemon in the tower have been restless in the last couple of days. Ethan then asks, if we can figure it out, then will you give me a gym battle? Morty slightly laughs at Ethan's enthusiasm and says yes. Just then, Mr. Vis lets out a cry. as something lets out a shriek from the shadows. Then it jumps in for an attack. Marina jumps in to save the frightened Mon as the hostile Pokemon appears. Morty says, "That's it, the reason everyone here is upset." Ethan pulls out his Pokedex and he learns that this Pokemon is called Sneasel. Ethan tells everyone to stay back. He's got this. He orders Quilava to engage Sneasel with a Flame Wheel. However, Sneasel proves it is more capable than it seems, using its speed to his advantage. Dodging repeatedly, Ethan begins to get frustrated, but remembers if he wants a gym battle, he needs to catch this thing. This hardens Ethan's resolve, and Quilava responds to it as it begins to glow with the familiar fire it has demonstrated in the past. This does allow Quilava to gain the edge and is finally able to connect with the Flame Wheel. This causes more damage than Ethan expected, and Morty comments that Sneasel is an ice dark type, so fire attacks are more powerful against it. Sneasel is down, but it is still struggling to fight. Ethan realizes that the only way to end this would be to actually catch it, so Ethan decides to throw a ball, and after 3 shakes, he's caught himself a brand new Sneasel. Then his Pokedex activates and prompts him to select a Pokemon to send to Professor Oak. This decision is hard, but ultimately he decides to send Furret to spread out the typing of his team. This capture gives Ethan the morale boost he needed, and he instantly turns to Morty and says, "Can we have our battle now?" Morty says, "Well, I guess, but don't you want to heal your Pokemon first?" Ethan says, "Not to worry, he has other Pokemon to use." Morty, impressed with Ethan's tenacity, agrees, and they head back to the gym. Marina, on the other hand, heads back to the Pokemon Center to document what she found out about when a Pokemon invades a habitat it doesn't normally appear in. As she heads out of the tower, Mr. Vis follows her. Marina, not having the heart to tell it to leave her alone, she asks it if it would like to join her. Mr. Vis jumps for joy, and Marina produces a Pokeball. She throws it at Mr. Vis, catching it, bringing her team of research assistants to 5 members. Over at the gym, Morty leads Ethan aside and welcomes into the gym. He tells Ethan that their battle will be a 3-on-3 and asks if he is ready. Ethan reminds Morty that he came looking for him. Morty laughs and says, "Okay, let's get this battle started." Morty then sends in his first Pokemon, Ghastly. Ethan, very unfamiliar with ghost types, chooses to use his Pokedex to get as much info as possible. After some thought and pressure from Morty to send in his first Pokemon, Ethan chooses to go with Quagsire. This battle is long and drawn out. Quagsire is actually a very good counter to Ghastly, being half ground, and it seems that the Shadow Ball doesn't really have the effect Morty wanted. As a result, Quagsire is able to outlast Ghastly when it tires, and Quagsire doesn't really show any signs of fatigue. So, in order to set up the next battle, Morty calls for a curse, which causes Ghastly to faint, but doesn't seem to have any effect on Quagsire. Ethan says it was dumb to use a move that would lose Morty a Pokemon, but Morty just smiles as Quagsire writhes in pain. Ethan, not understanding what's going on, accuses Morty of cheating. How could you cause damage without a Pokemon? Morty just laughs. That move was perfectly legal. Curse is a move that causes damage each turn, no matter what's happening. Morty then sends in Haunter and immediately calls for Mean Look. Ethan then tries to recall Quagsire, which fails to his surprise. Morty laughs again. That won't work either. Mean Look prevents you from recalling your Pokemon. Ethan then comes to the realization he's on a clock. Either Quagsire makes a move or he will lose the battle. That is exactly what happens, as Quagsire struggles to damage Haunter. Eventually, Quagsire falls to the curse, with only making 1 successful hit on Haunter. The loss shakes Ethan a little, and he recalls Quagsire. Then he has a thought. Why not use a Pokemon that Haunter can't hit? With that, he sends in Noctowl. This is far more genius than Ethan knows, as he finds out during the battle that Foresight makes ghost types susceptible to normal type attacks, and he is able to close out the battle with Haunter by using a takedown. Upon Haunter fainting, Noctowl levels up and learns a new move, Confusion. Morty recalls Haunter, commending Ethan on his choice to use Noctowl. Ethan says thanks, recalling Noctowl so it doesn't get locked into a battle like Quagsire. Also, to try and hide the fact that this choice was more luck than skill. With that, Morty sends in his final Pokemon, Gengar. Ethan was waiting for this. He didn't get a chance to see what it can do in the burnt tower, so he will have to be careful. Ethan then tries to type match Gengar, so he sends in Beedrill. This proves to be somewhat successful, not because Beedrill can match Gengar's type, but because it allows Ethan to see Gengar's battle style. In the end, Beedrill falls when it can't find Gengar, and it takes a Shadow Ball from behind. This then brings the match to its final battle. Ethan sends back in Noctowl and the battle gets underway. This battle proves to be a rough one for Ethan. He's got a lot to prove here and it's not far from his mind. Morty can see this and takes advantage of his divided thoughts, which causes damage to Noctowl. Morty tells Ethan that if he doesn't focus, the battle to him will be lost. Ethan snaps back right in time to call for Noctowl to avoid the attack from Gengar. Ethan tells Noctowl to counter with Confusion by sending it through the entire building. This catches Gengar with a critical hit. Noctowl then wraps it up with a another foresight takedown combo, barely winning Ethan the fog badge. When Morty presents Ethan with the fog badge, he tells him that he seemed very distracted during the gym battle. Morty also says that Ethan has the makings of a great trainer, but he needs to learn to focus during his battles, so his attention isn't divided. Ethan thanks Morty for the advice and the badge. Then he takes his leave. When Ethan gets back to the Pokemon Center, Gary asks how it went. He heard from Marina that he caught a new Pokemon. Ethan then flashes his new fog badge and claims that it went great, not wanting to reveal that he nearly lost due to his divided attention. Gary compliments Ethan on his win and asks Ethan and Marina to allow him to challenge Morty by himself. Marina is okay with this, as she still has more notes to document about the tower, but Ethan was really hoping to see Gary in battle, as it is a great learning experience. Ultimately, he agrees. The next morning, Gary heads to his gym battle as Ethan looks on. Meanwhile, off in the mountainous parts of Johto, Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, arrives at the site of ancient ruins to meet with the head researcher, Dr. Spencer Hale. And that's all we have for this part. So what do you guys think about Ash and his team and how everything's shaping up? How do you feel about Misty and her questioning her position in the team? And how do you feel about Team Gary, with Ethan not feeling confident in his gym battle and Gary wanting to distance himself from the group as well? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to interact more with me, don't forget to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter. And if you want to support me any further, head over to my Patreon. Just $5 a month get you 1 week early access to all of my videos. These awesome people have already donated, so I can continue to bring you the content that you love. The links for all of these are in the description below. Anyway, I'm Ronin Charizard, and I'll see you in the next video.